You stand up, and for a few seconds, something just feels wrong. Maybe your vision fades. Maybe your legs suddenly feel weak. Maybe your head just feels strange. Not spinning, not exactly dizzy, just wrong. And then 10 seconds later, it's gone. That's the kind of thing I think a lot of us brush off. Stood up too fast, didn't sleep well, probably Parkinson's, which, to be fair, is becoming my answer for almost everything. But here's what I didn't understand. Sometimes that weird moment after standing has less to do with your balance and more to do with whether you have enough blood getting to your brain quickly enough. And that changed the way I looked at this whole thing. Because dizziness with Parkinson's doesn't always feel like dizziness. Sometimes it feels like weakness, sometimes brain fog, sometimes your vision dims, and sometimes your body just says, sit down now. So today we're going to talk about what Parkinson's dizziness can actually look like. Because if you're only waiting for the room to start spinning, you may be missing what your body is trying to tell you.
Welcome to Living with Parkinson's. The good, the bad, and the reality. Real talk, real life, real community with Bryce Perry. Let's begin.
Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Bryce, and I was diagnosed with Parkinson's at the age of 40. And this is one of those subjects that reminded me how badly we use one word to describe a whole bunch of different experiences. We say, I'm dizzy. Okay, but what does that mean? Is the room spinning? Do you feel faint? Do your legs suddenly go weak? Does your vision darken? Does your thinking get muddy? Because those aren't necessarily the same thing. And one reason some people with Parkinson's experience that faint, weak, washed out feeling after standing is something called orthostatic hypertension. Now, basically, your blood pressure drops when you change position and your body doesn't correct it quickly enough, which is a very tidy medical explanation for an extremely untidy moment. Because when it happens, you're not standing there thinking, interesting, possibly autonomic blood pressure dysfunctional regulation. No, you're thinking, why the hell am I holding onto the kitchen island? And Parkinson's can interfere with the autonomic nervous system response that normally helps keep your blood pressure steady when you stand. Medication, dehydration, and other health issues also come into play with it. But I want you to stay with me because I'm going to later show you the one distinction I think is most useful to pay attention to when these episodes actually happen. And not because we're diagnosing ourselves, because we're definitely not, but because I get dizzy can mean 10 different things. And if we can describe what's actually happening, then that conversation with your healthcare team, as you know, gets a lot better. So let's start with the version most people already recognize. Okay, number one, that's the classic stand up whoosh. Okay, you've been sitting, you stand, and suddenly, whoosh, the room, maybe it doesn't sound like that for you, whoosh, but the room doesn't necessarily spin. It feels like everything shifts for a second, right? Maybe you grab a chair, maybe you stop moving, maybe your vision gets weird. And naturally, somebody always asks, are you okay? What do we say? Say it with me now. Yep, of course, official Parkinson's answer. Meanwhile, your brain is somewhere upstairs waiting for the blood pressure department to finish its coffee break. Sometimes it only lasts for a few seconds, which is exactly why it's so easy to ignore. You stand up, you feel weird, it passes, life continues. And maybe once in a while, you really did just stand up too quickly. But if it's starting to happen repeatedly, that's different, especially if you've developed a new habit without realizing it. You stand and immediately touch the counter or the wall or the chair or your spouse, some unsuspecting person standing next to you in Costco, whatever. You know what that means. You're automatically doing that to stop yourself from falling. So if you know what that whoosh feeling is, give me a whoosh in the comments. We'll see how you spell it, but give me a whoosh in the comments because I'm curious how many people immediately know exactly what I'm talking about and how many people are like, what in the world, Bryce, are you into today? Because the really interesting thing is this. Some people don't get much of a whoosh at all. Their body sends them a completely different message. And that's number two is your legs suddenly clock out. Now, this one surprised me Because if I stood up and my legs suddenly felt weak, my first thought would be Parkinson's. I'm off. Maybe I'm tired. Maybe I've been sitting too long. Maybe my legs are just having one of their union meetings. But a drop in blood pressure can also leave you feeling suddenly weak. You stand up with two perfectly serviceable legs, and somehow both of them submit their resignation at the same time. Right? No notice, no transition plan, just we have decided to pursue other opportunities. And this matters because if you already have balance problems, freezing or stiffness, slow reactions, and then your legs suddenly feel unreliable, now gravity has just been handed another advantage. And gravity was already doing just fine. It did not need any help. The important piece here, though, is timing. If your legs feel weak all day, that's one thing. But if they repeatedly feel weak right after you stand up, well, that's something worth noticing. And this is where our stubbornness can get us into big trouble. Okay, you stand, your legs feel strange, your brain says, walk it off. Maybe don't. This is not a character building exercise. Nobody has ever been inducted into the Parkinson Hall of Fame for refusing a chair. And if your body is telling you to stop, then you need to stop. Give it a few seconds because waiting beside the chair is considerably less annoying than recovering from a fall. Okay. Now, the next one's even stranger because I don't think people would call it dizziness at all. But number three is your brain goes into power saving mode. Have you ever stood up or been standing for a while and suddenly your thinking gets slow? Not spinning, not fainting. Your brain just feels muddy. Somebody asks you a perfectly reasonable question, and suddenly you're looking at them like they've asked you to explain the tax code in Mandarin. You know the answer. It's just apparently unavailable at this time. Please hold. Your call is important to us. Estimated time wait? Well, until my blood pressure gets upstairs. And this one is easy to misread because, come on, brain fog? We already have Parkinson's. Parkinson's brain fog is hardly breaking news. Fatigue can do it. Stress can do it. Off periods can do it. Not sleeping can do it. Tuesday can probably do it. But if that foggy feeling repeatedly appears after you stand or after you've been standing for a while, that context matters. Maybe you get out of the car. Maybe you walk somewhere. And for 20 seconds, you feel mentally disconnected. Then it clears. And you may think, dizziness? I wouldn't. I'd probably think my Parkinson's brain is being stupid again. But sometimes the word dizzy is hiding a completely different experience. So if you've ever had that, I'm not dizzy, but my brain is just temporarily left the meeting feeling, give me a fog in the comments. Because I think this may be one of the most recognized versions. And sometimes your body makes things feel a little more obvious. Because the next symptom literally changes what you see. Number four is somebody turns down the brightness and your vision goes blurry or dark. Maybe the edges start closing in. Maybe you still see little spots. Or maybe for 3 seconds, somebody put the entire world into power saving mode. And then everything came back. And because it passed so quickly, we just adapt. That's what people with Parkinson's are frighteningly good at. We adapt so well that sometimes we forget we're adapting. Maybe you now sit on the edge of the bed before you stand. Maybe you automatically pause when you get out of a chair. Or maybe you always reach for the dresser first thing in the morning. And you don't think, I have a symptom. You think, that's just how I get up now. And that's a really important distinction. Sometimes the clue isn't in the symptom, it's the workaround that you've quietly built around it. So think about that for a minute. Have you ever changed how you stand up? Do you ever wait before moving? Do you always need something nearby to hold on to? Those little changes can tell us a lot. And there are certain situations where these episodes may become more likely. And number five is heat showers and dehydration can stack the deck. Now, apparently, we've not finished the HVAC department yet. Heat can widen blood vessels. Dehydration can reduce circulating fluid. And if your blood pressure is already having trouble keeping up, well, now we've just added a few more obstacles. Now picture this: hot shower, a warm bathroom. You've been standing, maybe you haven't had much to drink. Then the step out of the shower, and your body says, excellent. Let's test gravity. Wonderful. And this is why some people may notice lightheadedness more in the hot weather too. Because now our temperatures episode and our dizziness episode have officially crossed over. And apparently, we're not building the Parkinson's cinematic universe. Nobody asked for that. But here we are. If hot showers or hot weather seem to trigger that weak or lightheaded feeling for you, then give me a heat in the below comments. Not because every dizzy spell is a shower in Parkinson's, but because when something happens, something matters. And there's another time people may feel washed out that doesn't immediately scream blood pressure. It's right after eating. Number 6 is sometimes lunch isn't finished with you. You eat, everything's fine. Then maybe 20 minutes later, you feel tired, you feel foggy, you feel weak, you feel lightheaded, you stand up, and suddenly you're thinking, what the hell just happened? Apparently, lunch isn't finished with you just yet, just because you finished with lunch. After a meal, the body sends more blood towards digestion. For someone already struggling with blood pressure regulation, that can sometimes contribute to a drop after eating. And here's where the details, they really make a difference. If you say, I feel tired after lunch, well, welcome to humanity. But imagine this. You eat lunch at noon. At 12:30, you go to stand up. Your vision dims. Your legs feel weak. You need to sit back down. And then 10 minutes later, you're mostly okay again. And this happens several times a day. Now, that's a very different story. You've gone from lunch makes me sleepy to there seems to be a repeatable event happening after my meals when I stand. That's the kind of distinction that I want us noticing. Not obsessing, not diagnosing, just paying attention. Because the next piece can complicate the picture even further. That's number 7. So medication can join the party too. Low blood pressure can be related to Parkinson's itself. Some medications can contribute to it. And, maybe you're also on blood pressure medication. Maybe you're dehydrated. Maybe it's just plain old hot. Maybe you just ate. At this point, my blood pressure has more people giving it instructions than I do. Now, don't run around trying to change your medication and getting all crazy with schedules. This is not the assignment. What I want us doing is noticing enough to ask better questions. Because your healthcare team may need to look at your medications, your blood pressure, your symptoms, and when all of this is happening. And there's another big reason not to self-diagnose, because not all dizziness is the same thing. Now, when dizzy means something completely different is when, like, the room is spinning. That's different from feeling faint when you stand. If turning your head triggers spinning, that may point somewhere else. Vertigo exists. Inner ear problems exist. Medication side effects exist. Other medical problems exist. And if you suddenly develop severe dizziness, along with other things like new weakness, facial dropping, speech trouble, or other sudden neurological symptoms, that is not, I'll bring this up next appointment. That needs urgent medical attention. So I don't want anybody leaving this episode thinking, every time I'm dizzy, my Parkinson's blood pressure is just acting up. Nope. What I want you thinking is, what exactly do I mean when I say dizzy? And that is the distinction I promised you earlier. Stop saying dizzy for a second. If this keeps happening, try describing the episode without using the word dizzy. That's it, just super simple. But think how much more information we get instead of I felt dizzy to when I stood up, my vision went dark. Or, when I got out of the shower, my legs suddenly felt weak. After lunch, I stood up and felt like I was going faint. When I turned my head in bed, the room spins. Those are 4 very different descriptions. And that may be the most useful thing that you take away from this episode. Because dizzy is a bucket, and we throw a bunch of different sensations into it. Okay, so now when this happens, I want you to remember three details: what you were doing, when did it happen, and what it actually felt like. Position, timing, feeling. And not because you need to create a color-coded system binder. I know some of you just got excited when I said binder, but calm down. You're just trying to remember enough details so that when somebody asks what happened, you don't say, I don't know, I just felt dizzy. Because maybe you don't, maybe your vision's failed, maybe your legs went weak, maybe you just felt faint, or maybe the room starts spinning. And that distinction matters. It really does. So, what can we actually do? Well, here's a few practical things. First, get up more slowly, especially first thing in the morning. Sit up, give yourself a second, then stand. There is no prize for achieving vertical status in record time. Obviously, if your medical team has told you to restrict fluids because of another condition, well, then listen to them. But dehydration can make low blood pressure feel worse. The third thing is, if you feel like you're going to faint, sit down. Again, groundbreaking medical terminology here. Just grab a chair, use it. This is not the moment to demonstrate resilience. And fourth, tell your healthcare team if this keeps happening, especially if you are falling, fainting, or near fainting, or something's already changed. There are treatments for orthostatic hypertension when appropriate. But which treatment makes the most sense depends on you, your medications, your blood pressure, any other health conditions. The conversion belongs to your medical team. And sometimes somebody living beside us notices this before we do. Which means, yes, it's Carmen time. And here's what my wife, Carmen, asked me to read to you today. From the care partner side, dizziness can be tricky because sometimes there isn't much warning. Bryce can look completely fine, stand up, and suddenly need a second. Now, if that happens, I don't need him proving that he's okay. I need him to stop moving until he actually is okay. And I think it helps to notice what was happening around the episode. Was it first thing in the morning? Was it after a medication or a shower or eating or a hot day? Those little details may be easier for two people to notice than one. And if the person you care for says they feel faint or something doesn't feel right, well, don't rush them. Give them a second, let them sit down. And if it keeps happening, encourage them to bring it up with their healthcare team. Because preventing one fall is a whole lot easier than recovering from one. And here is my Carmenism for you today. I hope you like it. Bryce calls grabbing the kitchen counter managing independently. I call it furniture-based care partnering. Very funny. Apparently the kitchen island is now on payroll. So here's what I want you to remember. Parkinson's disease does not always mean the room is spinning. It may feel like lightheadedness or weakness, dark or blurry vision, brain fog, feeling faint, or just a strange sense that your body hasn't caught up with the fact that you stood up. So here's what I want you to remember. Parkinson's dizziness does not always mean the room is spinning. It can feel like lightheadedness or weakness or dark or blurry vision, brain fog, feeling faint, or just that strange sense that your body hasn't caught up with the fact that you stood up. And one possible reason is a drop in blood pressure when you change position too quickly. But the bigger lesson is this: don't get too attached to the word dizzy. Describe what happened, because my vision went dark when I stood up tells us more than I got dizzy. And once we can explain what's actually happening, well, then we have a much better chance of figuring out what's behind it. All right, you made it this far. Here is your Bryceism of the episode. If gravity wants a rematch every time I stand up, it can wait until my blood pressure shows up. Ha, there you are. That's where I'm at. I've got Parkinson's. I do not also need to prove that I can beat gravity. So tell me in the comments, when you say dizzy, what do you actually mean? Spinning, faint, weak, foggy, or maybe all of the above? Give me the one that fits you best. And read through some of the other answers too in the comments, because I guarantee you somebody is going to describe something and another person is going to think that. That is exactly what I've been trying to explain. Well, if this episode helped you connect a dot or for two, well, share it with somebody else living with Parkinson's. Because someone out there may have been brushing this off as age or fatigue or just another weird Parkinson's day, when it may actually be worth asking about. And if you're new here, subscribe and come join us. This is just a channel, it's a community. We talk about the good, the bad, the awkward, the strange, and apparently now why standing up occasionally requires a clearance from air traffic control. Anyway, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it more than you could ever know. And until we see you next time, I want you to keep showing up. I want you to keep being real. I want you to keep doing life today. I will see you on the next episode.